Welcome back to Africa Revealed. Today's news. Today's focus on Burkina Faso, Mali, Algeria, and Chad. Let's start with Burkina Faso. In a powerful speech at a national ceremony, Captain Ibrahim Traore, president of Burkina Faso, sharply criticized French President Emmanuel Macron's recent statements on Africa. Traoré called for unwavering dedication in the fight against imperialism and stressed the importance of self-reliance and the mental decolonization of Africa. Addressing military personnel, civil servants, and citizens, Traoré stressed the need for a relentless struggle against imperialist forces. He urged Africans to adopt a transformative mindset, emphasizing that true independence goes beyond the physical expulsion of foreign military bases. Instead, he stressed the need to end colonial-era defense agreements that undermine African sovereignty.
The most dangerous are not those you see in the bases. The most dangerous are the military advisors. And who are these military advisors? They are the ones who are supposed to put France's policy into practice here. They must work to make our armies very weak, so that France can always have the argument of existing here. Under Blaise Compaoré, they had succeeded. So our guards were guarding with sticks. That's what France wants from our armies. When we get to this stage, we have no choice but to want them to come and settle.
Traoré responded directly to Macron's claim that African nations are showing ingratitude toward France. He condemned the statement as disrespectful, interpreting it as a rejection of African humanity and dignity.
This is a lesson that Emmanuel Macron has given to African heads of state, to catch up and to be able to really lead this fight against imperialism. But on top of that, he also insulted all Africans. In his words, there is a part that caught my attention, where he spoke of ingratitude and that ingratitude is a disease that cannot be transmitted to humans. So, he is human and our ingratitude is not transmissible to him. This is how this gentleman sees Africa and Africans. We are not human in his eyes. Maybe he is the one who is not human. He does not put himself in the class of humans. But if there is an ungrateful one, it is him.
The Burkinabe leader criticized France's continued presence in Africa under the cover of restructured security operations, accusing Macron of hiding imperial ambitions behind diplomatic maneuvers. Traoré drew attention to the role of colonial agreements and foreign training programs in perpetuating dependency. He cited examples where African officers trained in France were co-opted to serve French interests rather than their own nation.
We must break the agreements. This is the only way to have an independent army and to build ourselves strong. But many people do not understand it perhaps, and even with these agreements, France chooses student officers in our states to go and train them through these same agreements. But in reality, these officers who leave to train, for the most part for France, come to serve the French state in their country. They do not come to serve our countries. They train them so that they come to serve the interests of the French state. I have proof of this. When we revolted, many officers in Burkina who were trained in France were immediately contacted to tell them that it was time to take action because you were trained for that. Oh, serve the interests of France. Most of these officers reported to us, we took note and we continue to monitor.
In his closing speech, Traoré urged all Burkinabe citizens to work towards national self-sufficiency and unity, stressing the importance of agricultural development, mental decolonization, and collective action. Traoré's speech is likely to resonate across Africa, where debates over the legacy of colonialism and the role of foreign powers continue to shape political discourse. His message reinforces a growing sentiment among African nations that advocates a definitive break with neo-colonial influences. As Burkina Faso charts its path toward greater independence, Traoré's resolute stance positions him as a central figure in the Pan-Africanist movement, challenging global powers to rethink their role on the continent. Cut to Mali, where the government is further asserting its control over natural resources. Malian authorities seized about 3 tons of gold from Canadian mining company Barrick Gold, stepping up their efforts to secure a fairer share of the revenue generated by foreign companies operating on their territory. As Africa's third-largest gold producer, Mali has long attracted the world's mining giants. But the transition to military rule has transformed the country's approach to resource management. Authorities are negotiating tighter contracts with foreign companies, citing the need to boost domestic revenues amid soaring gold prices. The move is part of a broader movement in West Africa to regain control of strategic industries. The seized gold, valued at about $245 million, was transported from the Loulo-Gounkoto mining complex, a key site that accounts for 14% of Barrick's estimated 2025 gold production. In response, Barrick suspended operations there, signaling heightened tensions between the company and the Malian government. The Malian initiative is no exception. Countries such as Burkina Faso and Niger are also reasserting control over their mining sectors. Burkina Faso recently announced plans to withdraw permits from some foreign companies, while Niger took control of the operations of French uranium giant Orano. This regional trend reflects growing dissatisfaction with contracts deemed exploitative and insufficient contributions to local economies. In Mali, the conflict with Barrick Gold is part of a broader campaign against foreign operators. Since 2023, the government has been demanding contract revisions under new mining regulations and claims the company owes $5.5 billion in taxes, a figure disputed by Barrick. It follows previous clashes, including the detention of senior executives and an arrest warrant for the company's CEO for alleged money laundering. The story illustrates a broader shift across the Sahel. As nations like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger reassert control over their natural wealth, a new chapter in Africa's economic decolonization appears to be unfolding. These moves could redefine the continent's relationship with Western companies, ensuring greater local profits and strengthening national sovereignty. From the Sahel to North Africa, Algeria also has problems with France. Relations between Algeria and France have deteriorated sharply, reaching a new low in their already strained ties. Algeria accuses France of orchestrating a disinformation campaign and conducting a diplomatic escalation through provocative statements by French officials. The latest diplomatic clash concerns the expulsion and return of a controversial Algerian influencer, known by the pseudonym DM, arrested in France in January for allegedly violent comments targeting an Algerian activist critical of the Algiers government. DM was expelled to Algeria. However, Algiers has refused to allow him to enter its territory, citing a violation of diplomatic protocols. Algeria claims that France failed to inform its authorities of DM's arrest and expulsion, in violation of a consular agreement signed in 1974. French Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin accused Algeria of seeking to humiliate France by refusing to accept the influencer. In response, Algeria firmly rejected the allegations, saying it had no intention of escalation or provocation against France, while insisting that DM must answer for his actions before the French courts. The incident comes amid a deeper diplomatic dispute fueled by disagreements over Western Sahara. Algeria supports the Polisario Front's call for a referendum on self-determination in the region, while France has aligned itself with Morocco's position in favor of its sovereignty over the territory, a shift that angered Algiers and led to the recall of its ambassador to Paris last year. Relations have also deteriorated following the arrest of several Algerian influencers in France on charges of terrorism and incitement to violence. Last year, Algeria arrested French-Algerian writer B.M. Sell on national security charges, which exacerbated diplomatic tensions. Has suggested that retaliatory measures could be considered, including visa restrictions and cuts to development aid. Barrot said France must now assess all the means at its disposal, signaling a tough stance against Algeria's recent actions. These growing tensions highlight the fragile state of Franco-Algerian relations, rooted in a complex colonial history and divergent political agendas. These developments come as France struggles to maintain its influence in Africa, where it faces increasing criticism and resistance from its former colonies, including Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. This crisis raises questions about the future of cooperation between France and Algeria, particularly as both nations grapple with domestic and regional challenges. Can France afford to alienate another former colony at a time when its influence on the continent is waning? Or will this conflict prompt a reassessment of Franco-Algerian ties to avoid further escalation? The next steps taken by both countries will be crucial in determining whether this conflict remains a temporary rupture or escalates into a protracted diplomatic standoff. Finally, we conclude with Chad. On January 14, 2025, the Burkinabe Minister of Communication, Culture, Arts and Tourism, government spokesperson, Tui Gilbert Pine Wendy Draogo, visited the presidential palace in N'Djamena. Carrying a message from Captain Ibrahim Traore, president of Burkina Faso, he officially invited the Chadian president, Marshal Mahamat Idriss Déby Itno, to participate in the 29th edition of the Pan-African Film and Television Festival of Ouagadougou, FESPACO, where Chad will be honored as a special guest country. This distinction underlines the vitality and growing influence of the Chadian film industry. Already, for Chadian films are in competition, and several personalities from the country have been selected as members of the juries of this prestigious African cultural meeting. This gesture also strengthens cultural cooperation between Burkina Faso and Chad, two nations united by a common history, fraternal ties, and a shared desire to promote their cultural wealth. Marshal Déby expressed his gratitude for this honor, stating that FESPACO will be a unique opportunity to strengthen the historical relations between the two countries and celebrate African brotherhood through cinema. He praised Burkina Faso's commitment to giving a more dynamic cultural dimension to bilateral ties. Beyond its cinematographic vocation, FESPACO represents a crucial platform for dialogue, solidarity and cooperation between African peoples. For this edition, the authorities of the two countries wish to highlight the richness of their respective cultures and work together to address the common challenges of the Sahel, particularly those related to security and climate. The Burkinabe minister said that this event is a key step in strengthening African sovereignty through culture. FESPACO will be a celebration of brotherhood and solidarity, a symbol of the interconnection of our peoples and our desire to build a sustainable future, he said. This film collaboration is part of a broader vision to promote sustainable development in the Sahel. Burkina Faso and Chad, facing similar challenges, intend to capitalize on their cultural partnership to explore new economic and social initiatives. FESPACO 2025, scheduled for Ouagadougou, promises to be an unforgettable celebration, marked by a strong Chadian presence and a strengthening of ties between N'Djamena and Ouagadougou. A new step towards a united, sovereign, and culturally flourishing Africa. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for positive and inspiring stories about Africa.